Hey guys, just waiting on everybody to get in here. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How's it going? Louise, how's your day been?
It's been great. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been some time, but definitely glad to be back. Sky, how you doing? How's your day been?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Awesome. Well, today, as everybody's kind of joining in, we're gonna be talking about which path you should choose when you're talking about tech, like which industry you should go in, what maybe career path you should talk about. I know this topic in particular, you have a lot of varying opinions on which part of tech you should work in, especially in the coming years as the industry is kind of shifting. So, with that, yeah, I'm curious to hear everybody's opinions so we could get started. I think a really good question to ask to kind of just set the foundation here is what everybody thinks the hottest new industries are, the hottest new topics, especially in tech. So, Dweez, why don't we start with you? What do you think are the hottest new things in tech?
Mm, yeah, that's a good one. I think I think data, because when you look at data, you already can start thinking about algorithms, you can start thinking about AI. I think it's quite a broad term actually, but
Mhm.
if I had to pick like one of those categories I just mentioned, I think it's algorithms because everything is algorithms nowadays. And yeah, I think it's just going to keep on developing for you. I was gonna say get worse from here, but it's not gonna get worse. Like it gets better, or we hope at least. So yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think especially with like all the chat GPT and the AI kind of wind that's taking over, it's definitely one of those topics that is currently hot, and I think it will for a while. People are definitely all over it. Sky, what do you think? What are the kind of the hottest either buzzwords or industries in tech right now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely data, like Dwee said, and then obviously like AI with that. Um, and I'm trying to think of like maybe something else outside the box. Maybe electric vehicles. I don't know. Like just companies who are doing that. But I feel like yeah, just AI and data with that are
Yeah.
super hot right now.
Honestly, I'm surprised you guys said data. Like that's usually people are just like AI, machine learning, but data is kind of like the hidden like layer underneath all that. Like I think you can work as like a data engineer nowadays, and there's like a whole industry with data scientists and stuff like that. So I think yeah, data is definitely one of those like overlooked things when you're talking about AI and machine learning. So I think, yeah, the good follow-up question there is, how can someone who's kind of like an aspiring professional delve into these kind of hot industries? Or I guess it's not even just aspiring. It's like there's a lot of software engineers right now that don't work in like AI or machine learning or something like that. So what would you guys say to either folks like still in college kind of studying or existing software engineers that want to shift into AI? Like, how do you tap into that world? Sky, why don't we start with you this time?
I mean, I think we all know, like being in the space that we have to continually learn. So I would say, like, specifically, probably courses. I don't have any courses to recommend on AI. I mean, if you're not in the space at all, obviously you can come to a coding boot camp like Triple Ten and get started there. And then once you're in the space, I would say to just after that, it's pretty much just self learning, and you should be pretty good at it at that point. Like I'm going to university, but I still consider how I learn to be like self taught because I'm just like teaching myself all the time. But yeah, I would just say like new courses and then just keeping up with like specifically the languages. So like Python is huge right now. If you're super good in Python and you can do a lot of research about like the libraries that are available to you, then you can probably be on your way to working with AI.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so important to say that you definitely have to keep learning, and it's much easier said than done, especially once people kind of like find their niche. Like, if you really like web development or app development or something, then it's like, do you go deeper in that, or do you try to like keep reading in other industries as well? I think it's like a common problem for all software engineers or computer scientists in general, just because like computer science is such a broad term. There's so many different topics and industries within it. Dweez, what would you say to that? Like, what would you tell someone who's kind of just starting out and wants to tap into these hot industries? What do they do?
Yeah, it's what Sky said. You just gotta keep learning. Like in tech or most industries, but especially in tech, if you stop learning, like your development ends there. Yeah. Um, your development starts there, and yeah, if you're like, looking to get in these industries, you really gotta, I don't know, if you're, for example, studying something else and you just want to have knowledge about it, you really gotta like set aside time to dedicate to it. Just make it a routine, like I'm not asking you to do like 5 hours a day, but like you should put some time, maybe an hour a day, like read off outside of your studies, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think like reading is so important. That's something I definitely wanted to mention. Like there's so many with each one of these hot topics that kind of like starts to take over. Yeah, exactly, Scott. Yeah, like there's books that really professional people end up writing, and it's kind of cool because like with a lot of these industries, what I noticed, like Sky, that book, for example, like I'm
Yeah, I
sure
love it.
yeah, like the person who wrote it probably has been like studying the topic for we can't it's like inverted. Can you read the title for
Oh
us?
yeah, sorry. So this is a machine learning with PyTorch and scikit-learn, which are basically like
Yeah.
libraries I think that are in Python.
Hmm.
And it's there's a few different people, but I think if you just look up Packet, PACKT,
Yeah.
and then machine learning, you can find it. But this book is super helpful for like projects.
Yeah, yeah, and the cool thing I was gonna say is that like even though machine learning and AI is kind of like recently started to get into like the buzzwords of computer science folks, the authors of these books have kind of been like in this field for so long, so it's always really nice to kind of get like a very experienced perspective on these things. And that's like the trend with every single one of these buzzwords. I feel like when data engineering started spiking up, or like when test driven development was like the new trend, like there's a lot of books that folks can read to learn from people who are much more experienced in these fields. So yeah, definitely reading is important.
Or
Um,
podcasts are nice
yeah,
also. I
yeah.
like there are some nice ones. If you don't
Yes.
want to read, there's that alternative as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. By the way, yeah, I'm definitely someone who hates like sitting down and reading a book, so I listen to like audiobooks a lot. So there's also like that
Yeah.
option if you're like the whole point I think all three of us are trying to say is you're definitely just like have to find some way of learning. And certain ways for different people work it more effectively. So just yeah, find something that works for you, but definitely don't like stay stagnant, in especially in this industry. I think yeah, the next question I want to ask is something I kind of very briefly touched on a second ago, and it's how or which is more important, would you say, and why? Having a niche in a specific field of tech, or having like a broad skill set and like knowing a little bit of everything. Louise, why don't we start with you? Which one do you think is more important and why? I don't think there's a right answer, but just curious to hear your
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I'm being tested already. No. I think you should look if you're, niche, there's always the risk that technology will catch up to you and then AI will be able to do most of your work. So there, like, it depends on what task you have as well. It's unfair for me to say that AI will replace you because it won't. But I think as a developer, yes, you can like niche down to certain things, but at the same time you need to know a bit of other stuff because again, I don't know if the companies, especially, I feel like they also look at, how versatile you are as a developer rather than how good are you at this specific thing. Like, I don't know. There's no right answer to it, but I still feel like you should, as a developer, it kind of is your duty to know more than what you do.
Yeah.
But that's just how I see it. Maybe you disagree with me, and that's totally fine.
No, no,
But
I think I agree. I think what's important to remember too is like, for example, like role as a software engineer, I'm definitely like expected to be more of an expert in certain areas of like our code base, for example, so that when issues like arise in that part of the code base, like they kind of know, oh, like person X is the expert here, person Y is the expert here. But you still need to kind of like have an understanding of the big umbrella so that you could be like effective as an engineer. So I think that also spans out to like just the industry that you're in. It's impossible for an engineer to be like an expert in everything, right? Like you can't be an expert in data engineering and web development and machine learning and everything. There's no one really that exists that's like that, because there's just so many different industries and fields. But you definitely should have like fundamental understanding, I think, of how things work
yeah,
because you never know like when an opportunity might arise to like use a different field.
but
Um,
I
yeah,
sorry, I
yeah,
do think though, like eventually it's going to be normal for like a developer to, you know, be a software engineer and a data analyst
yeah,
and like be multiple things at the same time
yeah.
because of AI. I think
Hmm.
it will facilitate that much that one person can like, no, like be able to defend themselves in multiple fields rather than, but that's my utopia.
Yeah.
Like that's how how I see
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, honestly, the best engineers usually like within companies are the ones that like kind of wear multiple hats. And you kind of see this like also just in past history. Like at some point in time when in the early 2000s and up to like 2010, I think, you had like software engineers and then you had software engineers in test or like test engineers or something like that. And they were like two completely separate roles. Like one engineer was writing the production code and the other one was testing it. But then like post 2010, like people started just assuming that software engineers needed to also be able to write tests. Like it's kind of like a grouped thing. And I think that what you're saying to totally makes sense because like right now you have machine learning engineers and you have data scientists and you have software engineers. But like eventually, coupled with like all the tools that AI kind of gives you to make people more efficient, you could see some of those roles just kind of merge into one. And I see this like every day when I work, the really talented engineers are not the ones who like write the most code or something, but it's like the ones who can like do multiple things. It's like I can write code and then I can go into like any data analysis tool and like analyze our customers' usage, like stuff like that. So it's yeah, it's definitely a superpower to be able to like do multiple fields for sure. Sky, yeah, what do you think? We haven't gotten your opinion on this. Broad skill set or niche skill set?
I think, like you guys kind of pointed out already, I think there's like two sides to the coin. Like at first, I'm reading another book, Deep Work, and I feel like I wanted to say like you should niche down and you should really focus on like one thing. Because this book talks about like shallow work, and it just shows like how you can't really get much done if you're distracted on multiple things. But then Dweez brought up a good point with interviewers, and how they want to know you'll be able to adapt to like their company. Like if you have a resume that's like well rounded, using different tools and using different languages instead of just sticking with one, it kind of shows like any company that you're going to that you're able to adapt to whatever their tools are, whatever their programs and languages are and everything. So I feel like for that purpose, you want to be well rounded. But then it's just like up to opinion. It's like if you find yourself wanting to wear like multiple hats and do different things, just make sure you're good at that. And
Yeah.
then I think you'll have, a role somewhere where that will be great. And then if you want to niche down and just focus on one thing, just make sure you're really good at that one thing. And I think you'll stand out that way too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it also depends like what you want to do career wise. Like big companies will usually hire like very niche kind of things because they just want someone who's like really good at this particular skill set. But the
Mhm.
smaller the company that you work at, the more hats that you'll kind of have to wear. So you'll need to be more broad. Like you'll need to be able to do web development and the back end and just like maybe machine learning stuff as well. So yeah, it's definitely opinionated. I think, as I said like at the beginning, there's probably no right answer to this. It's really just like what you want to do career wise. Nadir in the chat asked a question that's pretty like up to date with our topic, and it goes right along with my next question. So he was saying, do you think someone should focus on one side, like front end or back end development, as a junior developer, or like as someone who's entering the industry, or I guess as opposed to like being a full stack developer? And I guess that kind of is like niching down to either front end or back end, or kind of do a jack of all trades kind of thing. What do you guys think? Sky, let's go first.
Nader, I think that's a really good question. I'm also a junior in college, and I kind of ask myself the same thing. And I think it just depends on what you enjoy. I know that sounds like cheesy, but for me, I kind of like front end when I'm working on like my own projects, but I know that I really, really enjoy back end. So I spend most of my time learning like back end projects and just things like that. And then as far as like full stack, I don't know. It just depends on maybe your college experience. Like if you're getting a lot out of your courses and you think you can, interview at a company or get an internship with the courses that you're using, or the courses that you're taking and like what they're teaching you, that if that's going to be enough, then I don't think you have to worry about presenting yourself as like a full stack developer. But I would just say, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but just whatever you prefer. If you're really like focusing a lot of time and you find it easy to build like front end projects, then I would say like run with that, or vice versa, like back end projects, because you're going to have to be somewhat interested in it to be able to like build that resume.
Yeah, yeah. I would say yeah, like definitely go for what you enjoy for as well. But I would say like the earlier you are in your career, the more useful it'll be to kind of know like to be a full stack developer. You'll just like when you start out your career, if you are a full stack developer, you'll get to work on a lot of projects where you can like test out what you like. I think like eventually you'll know like I'm more of a front end person, I'm more of a back end person. But if you start out as a full stack, you can kind of tailor your career to what you want a little bit more. Like for me, like in early on, I definitely was more interested in front end, but as I worked more full stack in some of like my earlier jobs and internships, I was just like, like I think I'm more of a back end person actually. Like I got to do a lot of projects where I could kind of experiment with that. So I would say early on in your career, you should definitely try to be like a jack of all trades and know how to do both sides of things, at least like just basic understanding, and then you can kind of shift into something, into what you like later. Louise, what do you think? Front end, back end, or start out as both?
Yeah, yeah, it depends what you like, what you are good at, what you feel most comfortable with. Like from a practical point of view, yeah, you should maybe start doing everything and yeah, see where it takes you. But if you really hate being a full stack developer, I wouldn't do it. Just do whichever side you like best and see where you go. Again, it's not like you start as a front end developer and you're condemned forever to be a front end developer. No, you can always learn and transition to the back end or full stack. Like there's many ways to go about it. There's not a right way to do it or just one way of doing it. But I would definitely recommend starting with what you like best. If you want to, you don't necessarily like front end development best, but you're better at it, you can pick that as well. But as long as you don't hate it, as long as you enjoy what you do, I think you'll be fine. And learn, as we said earlier, never stop learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like what we mentioned earlier about never stop learning also includes like getting hands-on experience with some of these things and kind of learning what you like and delving more deep into it. We'll shift a bit. I think a question that I at least I receive like in DMs and stuff like that is what factors should you kind of consider when you're thinking about what type of job you want? So like this includes corporate jobs, startups, sometimes even freelancers. Like what should someone kind of start out as if they had the option to go to like any job that they choose from like a learning perspective, would you guys say? So I mean either corporate or startup or start out as like a freelancer. Dweez, what do you think?
Well, I'm reading the question, by the way.
Yeah.
So, what factors should one consider when deciding between a corporate job and a startup in the tech sector? Well, I think if you are, you're looking to break into tech and it's your first job, I wouldn't go for a startup unless you will be able to handle the workload and things like that. Yes, go for it. But I feel like I didn't, work at a tech company as a developer like that. But it's just me knowing that, for in a tech startup, usually they ask of you to do many things because you're probably the only developer on the team, and you will be having all the positions. You're the senior developer, you're the junior developer. You will be the one doing like most of the heavy lifting. And I don't know if that is nice to have as a junior developer, or yeah, you're technically still a junior developer. And because of that, you won't have the mentorship that you could get at at a bigger company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
What would you
but
say what would you say the pros of working at a startup would be? Like why would anyone ever go to a startup?
yeah, the experience that is like the benefits. I don't know the benefits, honestly. I don't even know if that's the proper experience because I'm the type of person, if I don't know something, I will go to someone and let them and guide me. I need a lot of guidance when I learn things. So I personally would like to have someone that knows how to do it rather than having to figure it out on my own because it's going to take longer and I'm just going to spend a lot of time doing it while I could just apply for that company and Ziyad will be my mentor. And if I get stuck with something, I ask Ziyad for it rather than figuring it out alone. But that's how I approach things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the benefits are of working at a startup.
Yeah, I would say it's like I've worked at a startup and like a medium-sized company, and I do want to say though that like startups move a lot quicker than the bigger companies. So if you're more about like if you're already like know what you're doing, like so definitely if you're young, I think you're right. Like you want to seek a lot of mentorship and learn how to do things right. But once you've kind of passed that like early learning curve and you want to like build things quicker and get the like the startup experience of moving fast and breaking things and stuff like that. I think it'll be really beneficial for you. Like for example, at a big company, like the one I work at right now, like I'm purely in charge of just like writing the code, designing the technical documents and stuff like that. But once I've done my part, there's like a department for everything else. Like we have a department for marketing, we have a department for quality assurance, for deployment, releasing, stuff like that. So I don't ever get to like touch any of that stuff, right? But at a startup where you have like under 500 people like working at it, or like a few hundred folks, you're probably going to be asked to do like more than that, right? Like you're going to be writing the code, but you're also like going to be in charge of releasing your code. You're also going to be in charge of maybe like monitoring your code to see like are people using this feature that I built, or how are they using it and stuff like that. And that's just because like startups have less people, so less people, but probably the same workload. So more like each person has to take on a little bit more work and go outside their comfort zone. So it's not for everyone, but it's definitely for people who want to get more than just the software engineering experience. Like you want to learn how to like just be like a productive person outside of that. Like you want to learn how
Yeah.
to get things done. I think it's good for that. But it's also not very stable. I do want to say that. Like if anyone's thinking about like applying to startups, with a company like Google, you know they're going to be there in a year, but with like a startup, you can't like definitively say that that company is going to be around in a year or two. So it's just something to kind of like consider from a basic living perspective if you need like a job. But yeah, Luis, what do you think? You totally disagree, or you think there's
Yeah, no, when I think startup, I think of the company that we started yesterday on the back of a napkin in McDonald's, like that's what I think of a startup. But there are also indeed, it depends on the size of the company, I guess. Yeah. If it's
yeah,
like a larger startup, then I think you as long as there's another engineer on the team, if it's your first job,
yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, you'll definitely learn a lot. I think like yeah, starting like a garage kind of startup that like your typical five people are on the team startup, that's definitely very risky if you're just starting out because like
Join.
yeah, as an engineer you still like have a lot to learn. So that's yeah, it's good to have that pressure from senior engineers who can teach you for sure. Sky, you want to add anything or you have any thoughts on this?
I think for like if you're just starting out, obviously just what I think in my own personal life is like getting my foot in the door anywhere. I'll take it. And I know some like juniors and sophomores in college right now that are working at startups and they are just a lot more work and they're a lot more pressure. But I think there's a lot of benefits like networking is one thing. So like even if that company isn't a thing in a couple of years, or even if your job there is not for like a year kind of contract, you're gonna meet like a lot of amazing people who are also like really self-driven and are able to like get things done. And then there's always that opportunity that the company makes it super big and you were
Yeah.
there right at from ground up. But I think you
Yeah.
guys nailed the rest.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good segue to another question I have, which is obviously like everyone kind of has their ideal thing, like, oh, I want to work at a big company or I want to work at a startup, like to start out or something like that. The question is like, how do you kind of balance what you want to do versus also like what's actually practically out there? And I think that's really like important today because the tech markets just aren't that good. So you even said, Sky, like I just want to get my foot in the door, right? So I think I'll ask you this kind of directly, like let's say you want to really be like a front end developer, but the only opportunities out there are like for back end developers or something. Like, does someone in that position kind of just do whatever's practical, like whatever's offered to them, or should they kind of like keep grinding to find something that really matches what they want to do?
I mean, I'll just speak from like my own personal experience.
Yeah.
I like coming from college and like I'm looking for internships and stuff. Like I'll pivot my resume and my skills to whoever needs me. Like, I came from a healthcare background. So right now it's like, it's so hard right now to get a job in tech that I'm considering just pivoting back to like I've already been in healthcare. I have connections with like healthcare companies in my state, and they need programmers. Like that's something that I might consider because it's like it's taking so much time. It's so rough to get a job. So I think that's something you should always consider because once you're at a company, internships, those are like the perfect learning experience. So you can get your foot in the door anywhere and then, network and talk and, go to those meetings and make sure your managers and leaders know like what are your end goals? Like you might be there for the company for one reason, but you could really let them know I'm super passionate about this. And a good company will always put you where you're going to do best. So I would just say get your get your foot in the door. That's
Yeah.
that's my goal.
That's actually a really good point because sometimes you don't even know what you want to do. I've like gotten jobs within a company and then I realize I hate like what the team's working on. So I ask to like switch to another team and there's like different contexts and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I 100% agree with you, especially when you're like a junior. Like if you really want to work at Apple, but Apple doesn't want you right now and you end up getting like an offer from a startup instead, just like go get some experience. Like you haven't gotten any engineering experience yet, so it's really important to just like get what you can basically. I think especially in this market where it's pretty tough to land anything these days. Dweez, what do you think? Follow your passion or settle for something for now and pivot later? Also, you're on mute, just to, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely just take it. Like it's about getting the experience. Like, yeah, like Sky said, for example, you can get a foot in the door, just the connections that you make. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like, let's say you just graduated and you're jobless, you're trying to make some income. I wouldn't be picky about it. Like, no, go for it. Take that year. Like, even if you do hate it, it's not forever. You can still look for other jobs in the future,
Yeah.
and you get some experience as well. Maybe you'll end up liking it. You never know. Just take it. And in the beginning, especially, considering that you don't have much experience, I think it will only benefit you.
Yeah, yeah. Those are really good points. I think. I think two people are asking, do you recommend avoiding joining startups altogether as a junior? And I think a follow-up is should they be avoided altogether? I think I just want to before I ask Sky and Dweez, I definitely want to say like as a junior, I believe you doesn't really make a ton of sense, but at the like avoid it altogether, I don't think so. I think there's definitely pros and cons to joining startups, and that's what we kind of talked about earlier. Do Louise, Sky, you guys agree? Have different points?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Like you shouldn't like avoid it completely. Just know that there are pros and cons.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Sky.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless you're in like some binding contract that's like
Yeah,
6 months or a year or something. I mean, the worst that can happen is you're working and it's way too much and it's not what you thought it would be and you don't like it. You can, respectfully resign or, move on to something else or finish out the internship, whatever, and then just say, that was way more than what I expected.
yeah,
But I feel like at this point, I don't think anyone should be like turning down opportunities unless you're like a prodigy or something. I feel like any opportunity that you get, I would go for it. And then, it might end up being something great. If it's not, yeah, the worst that can happen is you just brush it
move
off
on.
and go to the next thing.
Yeah.
But any experience, I guarantee, even if you didn't enjoy it, you're going to put that experience on your resume and hopefully it can help you get a new job. So just try to like take advantage of anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I fully agree. Like, there's just no reason to be turning things down right now, or like, I know, like, I have people that are friends of mine that they're not necessarily like turning down opportunities, but they're like not pursuing them because of like the type of role. Like, they're saying like, oh, I'm only gonna apply to like big companies and not any startups, or like I'm only gonna apply to startups and not any big companies. Like, I think all of us probably know this. Like, you need to apply to so many companies to get like any response from anything. So, this is definitely isn't like an employees market where you could like narrow down what you want to do. At the end of the day, you need like a job and you need experience so that you can get to where you want to get to. Yeah,
But if
Scott,
you hate it,
what's
Ziad
that?
warned you.
Huh?
I said, if you hate it, Ziad warned you.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, you can tag me if things go wrong. Yeah. Sky, I think you're the best one to ask this next question. But I think I have some opinions and Dweez probably as well. But do you or do you think that formal education, like college degrees or yeah, like not boot camps, basically like formal kind of education, is necessary or like required to have a tech career, or like is it required to have a successful tech career? Like, do you need it to be successful in tech? What are your thoughts
I
on that?
I think I it depends on like the type of person that you are and also the type of situation that you're in. But just as a general answer, I would say no, I don't think it's necessary like almost at all because I know so many people who have hugely successful tech careers and it's not even like they're like a unicorn. It's like I know so many people with successful tech careers who came from totally different backgrounds, who didn't get a formal education or didn't get a formal education in computer science, but they might have a bachelor's in like marketing or something, or business, and people who came from different careers who just self-taught or went to a boot camp that are doing great now. They make six figures and
Yeah.
they're, applying for whatever jobs they want. So in general, no. For me, when I started college, I only went into it knowing that like it's what I needed in my situation, because I was working full time and I needed to like pivot to school full time. And I just feel like I want to like have every best chance that I can possibly have entering this industry because I know I'm going to be in it for the rest of my life. Hopefully, it'll be my career forever. But I think it just depends on the type of person too.
Yeah, yeah. That I agree with that for sure. I think like right now it's like the most traditional way to get into tech. Like you go to college, there's probably going to be some career fairs or something like that, and you can like get opportunities through that way. But after like working for a bit, I've met like just so many people who have either come out of like boot camps and stuff like that, or what's even weirder is like they'll have degrees in something that's totally unrelated to computer science. Like right now, my like manager or like the tech lead on my team was from nuclear engineering, and he worked at like a nuclear power plant for like a few years. So it was very different, yeah. And he just like learned how to code in his free time, like just for fun, and ended up liking it. So he switched careers. So it's yeah, like you have so many stories like that, like just people who are either electrical engineers, some like biology majors, like stuff like that, and they just kind of learn how to code either on their free time or through a online course or something, and you'll see them switching and have amazing careers. I think that's the really cool thing about the industry is it's like very open to kind of anyone, and you don't have to go through the typical college path. I'm totally used to that. Like I went to college to computer science as my major, and like my first few internships were because of like career fairs and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't think it was like a requirement. It's just like what worked for me, basically. Louise, what do you think? Do you have to have like a college degree, or is that like the easiest way to get into tech, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
it depends on your personal situation. Like, for example, in Sky's case, Sky wanted to just switch to the study mode. So, yeah, going to university made the most sense. But you can also just say, yeah, I just want to learn at my own pace. Like, I'm still working. I still want to continue on working and learn how to code on my own. So in cases like that, yeah, there's many alternatives. It's what you prefer. If you also feel like you need to have hard deadlines, okay, like at university, if you have like the exam, you need to study for it. You can't just skip it, or at most universities, at least, you can't just skip it and say, yeah, I'll do it next week. You can't do that. So I think in these types of situations, university really is useful. But there's many other ways you can go about it, as Kai explained as well, as you explained.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
I
a
want to
lot of
also say
online.
like university is great for like meeting people as well. Like people who in the future will work at other tech companies and can maybe help you out or like teach you things, stuff like that. So it's also a great networking experience. But also like depends on where you are. Like college in the United States is super expensive, so it's like not everybody will have like that same opportunity. Meanwhile, I know like a bunch of European countries, for example, have free college anyways, so you kind of don't have like a con to going to college, right? Or yeah, someone in the chat saying like they earned a scholarship, so that situation, yeah, it's like worth it to basically get a return on investment when your investment is zero, right? So it makes sense. So yeah, it really does depend on your situation. I think the follow-up question to that is, would you say things like boot camps or certificates are equal to a college degree, or are people still missing out a little bit if they're doing boot camps and stuff like that as alternative to college? Dweez, what do you think? It's a tough question.
Yeah, could you go through it again, the question?
Yeah. So would you say someone like if you have basically two people, right, and one of them it has like a computer science or computer engineering degree, and the other person is boot camp taught, or like has like certificates and stuff, are they both equal, or does it depend, or what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. Not that one is better than the other, but the
Mm,
skill sets that they possess may differ. Like I feel like university graduates, yeah, when an engineer comes out of university, they know more in certain fields, and while boot camp students are more, you learn more like the skills that you need to learn to be to be a software engineer or a software developer. Well, for university graduates, it's like the knowledge they possess of certain things goes way deeper than just what you are taught. Like they not only know how to do it, but also maybe know why it's like that. So yeah, it depends. I don't think
yeah.
they are like the same level which they are. Yeah, they should both be able to do the job. It's just that as when they start fresh as to newly, yeah, freshly graduated junior developers, you're not gonna, yeah, it's gonna differ. But I think with time, you as they both enter the job and start working, with time you don't see those differences
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, I do definitely want to say like all these questions that we're kind of answering, like after the first 3 years maybe of like working in the industry, like nobody cares really what college you graduated from or what boot camp you graduated from. Most interviews that you go into, they'll ask about like what projects did you work on, like what was your contributions to them, because that's what the company cares about. They just want to know if you're going to be like a good employee at the end of the day. The issue is that like when you're younger in terms of experience, the company doesn't have any like indicators that you're going to be a good employee other than like what education maybe you had or what side projects did you work on, stuff like that. But after a few years in industry, like none of that matters. It's really about like what companies maybe you've worked at, what problems you helped solve, stuff like that. So yeah, Sky, what do you think in terms of just really early on boot camp? Is it equivalent to a college degree or not really, or what do you think?
I feel like I wouldn't say equivalent, like they're the same, because obviously you're learning. Something I really appreciate about boot camps is that you learn exactly what companies are looking for, and then you learn exactly how to pass these interviews, and you learn like exactly the tools. Like we never use GitHub, we never use Git in college, so I feel like university is like a lot of theory. It's a lot of, but it also at the same time, I appreciate it for myself because I feel really well rounded. And they're just not going to be equivalent because university is 4 years and boot camps are, 10 to 12 months or sometimes they're less. But I feel like going into a specific role, I feel like boot camps do prepare you probably as well as you need in that time frame for those specific roles. And then everything else is going to be like hands-on learning. And then with university, it's like obviously you're committing years of your life to really dig deep into like these, small niche topics. But I really enjoy university. I feel like going to my classes, I almost changed my major to electrical engineering because I like really enjoyed some other stuff. So it exposes you to different theory. And yeah, but will you need it if you're just doing a software engineering role forever? Maybe not.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely do want to mention that we as Triple Ten do offer boot camps if you're interested in going down that route, and there's a lot of great resources that are all over our social media and stuff like that that you can definitely check out to learn how to get into some of these fields. There's a question I really want to get into in these last few minutes here, in terms of more of like the soft skills that you kind of need for a tech job. So in essentially, like I know this for me as well. Like working in a tech job involves working with other people and collaboration and stuff like that. So I just want to definitely hear from each of you, like what role do you think soft skills, or like what soft skills should someone kind of prioritize when they want to work in tech? Uh, Louise, why don't we start with you?
I don't know what soft skills are.
Okay, Sky, you want to go
I
first
can
then?
explain. Yeah, so soft skills are basically so hard skills are going to be like your technical skills, what's on your resume, what programs you work with. Soft skills are going to be things like I think the number one biggest soft skill we should have is communication. I think it's really, really important to know how to communicate with your colleagues and with a client or with your leaders. But it could be things like just almost like courtesy kind of things. And soft skills could also be like how you connect with people, more of like personality traits, and just behaviors that you have like in the office or with other people. Those are going to be soft skills. So I feel like the biggest one is just like communication. Because a lot of engineers get this bad rap that like we don't know how to communicate with people and we just sit at a computer all day and we don't talk to anyone, we don't touch grass. So I think it's good to like make sure everyone, make sure you can communicate well, because a lot of the times like you might have this idea in your head of your code or your product that you want to convey to someone. But if you can't explain that in like real words to someone and be able to look them in the eyes and, explain like what you want to convey to them, then it's just not going to be very helpful and you're not going to really get what you want to achieve done.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely fully agree. There was this quote recently that I think I saw like a video or something that was basically saying that programmers live in two states of being. You're either in the imposter syndrome or you're in a superiority complex where you think you're like the best programmer on earth. So I think it's very important to kind of understand that everybody else that you work with that's an engineer is also kind of like in that zone where they're either like really struggling with something and they think they're like stupid for not being able to solve it, or they solve a really complex problem and they think they're programming. So when you kind of keep that in mind, I think the core of it is like being nice to other people as an engineer and like willing to help them out and stuff like that is very important. There's a bunch of people that say like the key to just like being a good employee in general is working hard and being nice. Like that's really all there is to it. So in terms of engineers, that means like being willing to help other people solve their tasks, like reviewing other people's PRs and code and stuff like that when they ask for it. So just those kind of, I think that's like the soft skills kind of programming, is realizing you're like not just this kind of like locked in hacker that's working independently and by themselves. You're like part of a team, right? So like asking questions of others and trying to find ways to like help the overall team or the overall company is very, very, very critical. And like you said, communication is such a key part of that. Like just talking and sharing your ideas and perspectives and stuff like that, and disagreeing with others when you do. Like that's an important part of it as well. I think those are all critical things. Dweez, do you know what soft skills are now? You good?
Yeah, I know what soft skills are. Thank you. That's why I'm here. I think also being able to receive feedback is
Yeah.
is important. Like you're a developer, like if someone tells you, hey, you can do better in this field, don't take it personal. Just
Yeah.
take the advice and do something with it. You'll become better. That's
Yeah.
how you improve. So And I think it's really important to be aware of it because I personally sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I'm receiving criticism, but at the end of the day, it only helps you get better. So don't take it too hard. We say just do something
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's such
exactly.
an acronym. Q-tip is quit taking it personally.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's very rare that someone is going to give you feedback with like the intent of hurting your feelings or something. Like, even if they do say it in like a direct way or aggressive or something, like 99% of the time, I'd say like the person's intent is not to bully you. It's to like just, something that you're doing could be a bit better. And that, like, you don't even have to take their advice. It's just like taking feedback. It's just making sure that you're not getting like butt hurt by by what someone else said, right? If someone's telling you the code quality could be better, or you should comment more, or something like that. I think those are all things, especially as a junior engineer. Like you should expect to get so much feedback from everybody like around you, even from like other junior engineers as well. Like you're gonna be the one receiving most of the feedback, and it's very low chance that you're going to be giving someone else feedback. So you just kind of like need to get used to that kind of parallel where you need to be willing to definitely like take it in and improve on that. I think that those are the best engineers, the ones who definitely like are willing to accept the feedback and improve kind of on it. But yeah, those are definitely some good answers. I think this we can kind of we have time for one more question, I would say. Yeah, we can do the advice question. I think when you were kind of starting out, like based on where you are now, even Sky, like you're kind of pursuing it in college as of right now. If someone is like just starting out, even just thinking about like wanting to do tech as a career, what's the piece of advice you would give them, like a starting point? Sky, yeah, what do you think?
Um, Gosh, I'm trying to think. I feel like I answer this question a lot too. If you're coming from another career and you're switching to tech, I would just say definitely be ready for just obviously how difficult it's going to be and how much information there's going to be. But then always keep in mind that you will be able to process everything in time. That the information is just going to take a lot of time
Yeah.
to take because it's like information overload, of course. So
Yeah, yeah. I think
you will be able to
to
do it.
build, yeah, to definitely build off of that, I want to say that like you should expect to have imposter syndrome. Like you shouldn't be like assuming that you're going to be smart at something. I think learning how to code is kind of like riding a bike. Like nobody's born knowing how to like ride a bike. You kind of just have to like fall a few times and eventually you'll get used to it. So even throughout your career as like someone in tech, whether you're starting out or wanting to get like into a new niche or something, assuming that you are like very not experienced is going to go a long way because then it pushes you to like ask questions and learn from others and stuff like that. So don't be scared of imposter syndrome. Like kind of it's cheesy and corny, but like embrace that kind of feeling where you don't know anything, and I think that'll take you a long way. Dweez, what would you say? What's one piece of advice you'd tell someone who's starting out?
I I agree with what you just said. Like, if you have imposter syndrome, just embrace it. Like, hey, this is how much I know, and this is how much I don't know.
Hmm.
Always don't be afraid to say, what you don't know,
Yeah.
because like if you don't communicate it and you just go and pretend to know what you are talking about, you'll just make a fool of yourself. You're not gonna go anywhere with that mindset. Like, if you do feel like, okay, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, just say it. Maybe you just needed some guidance. Someone can always help you. They're not going to tell you, no, Ziad, or no, we're not going to help you. You should know this. You're an engineer. No, it doesn't work like that. So
Yep.
be honest with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I think I like what you said. Like, know what you know and know what you don't know. That'll definitely take you a long way, especially in an industry that's always changing. You have to be like very vulnerable and understand that there's a lot of stuff that you're definitely not going to know, and someone else is going to know it. So go learn from them, whether that's through reading a book or listening to a podcast or asking people directly. I think being vulnerable is very important. Yeah, I think we can wrap up with that. I really appreciate everyone. There's a few people in the comments that definitely kept this conversation going, so definitely appreciate you guys for that. We're here every Wednesday at 10:30 Pacific time, so definitely join us for more conversations about tech and AI and trends and all that kind of fun stuff. And we have tons of content by everyone here and a lot of other awesome creators on our channels. So definitely check those out if you want to learn more about tech. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week.
See
Bye
you.
guys.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.